It's all too easy to think of the resurrection and ascension of Jesus as the end of salvation history. We rightly celebrate those two great mysteries as God's decisive triumph over sin and death. But to think that they are the end of the story would be a mistake. They are, in fact, just the beginning. Our feast today, our celebration of Mary's assumption into heaven, shows us just that Jesus' resurrection and ascension are the beginning of His recreation of heaven and earth. Today we celebrate that moment at the end of the course of Mary's earthly life, when she was lifted up, assumed into heaven, body and soul, by her Son, Jesus. In our second reading today, St. Paul tells us that Jesus is the first fruits of the new creation, that He is the firstborn from the dead. He tells us that the whole creation, everything we see around us, will be raised up in time, in the proper order. When St. Paul tells us that Jesus is first, he's letting us in on the truth that Jesus intends to share the gift of His resurrection and ascension with all of us, again, in the proper order. If Jesus is the first fruits, if He is the firstborn, then Mary is the secondborn, the second fruits of the new creation, won for us by Jesus. And it only makes sense. Mary was the first to hear the name of Jesus uttered by the angel Gabriel. She was the first to believe in Him, the first to love Him, the first to follow Him. And it's only right that she would go before us, anticipating the new heaven and the new earth in her own body, raised to join Jesus. Like all of the amazing, singular, unique privileges of the Blessed Virgin Mother, her assumption shows us how God desires to bless us, that our home is with Jesus and Mary and all the saints in heaven. If you've been watching the news, you know very painfully that the Church and the whole world is in desperate need of being lifted up out of sin and death. And our feast today shows us that God is willing and able to do just that. It's our prayer today that Mary, whom Christ chose to join Him in heaven first, will guide us along the path that she herself walked, a path of faith, a path of perseverance, trust, love, a path that ends where she now lives, in the body that bore Jesus, heaven, our true home.